Well, the inflation number came in just below the expectations yesterday, 3.3%, still well below the Fed's target of 2%. But there was great optimism across many yesterday and from many yesterday that maybe this trend continues in the right direction. And who knows? I mean, could the Fed actually start cutting rates this year? I don't know. Let's get on Taylor Riggs. Fox Business Network does outstanding work there. She joins us on KCMO in Kansas City after also a press conference yesterday from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Taylor, good morning. What did you hear from the Fed Chair yesterday, and what does that signal to you either way?
Yeah, good morning. We called it our big double header yesterday, right? Or double whammy. We got a 2-for-1 special with the CPI and then the Fed. You know, it was interesting when you're talking about rate cuts because the Federal Reserve came out yesterday and they signaled through some of their messaging that they are thinking they might cut interest rates only once this year. Now, the markets are still hoping for two, but the Federal Reserve said that given the data that they've seen so far, they're still hoping for one. You know, you mentioned the inflation data as well. I think there was a huge sigh of relief because remember, in January, February, and March, inflation came in a lot hotter than expected. This was finally another reading where it came in a little bit lower than expected. So it's showing that the Federal Reserve's medicine, keeping interest rates high, is working. It's starting to cool off inflation. So I want to caution this was just one data point. And the Federal Reserve said very clearly they need to see multiple data points in a row before they can feel really confident that inflation is under control. But this was certainly a step in the right direction. Markets were closing at record highs yesterday, really on some of that hope and optimism that maybe we'll get rate cuts this year.
Well, why? I mean, you just said it right there, Taylor. Their medicine, so to speak, is working. So why would they rush to a potential rate cut as early as September if the medicine that they are prescribing to the economy is working as they want it to without any major downside right now with a pretty strong labor market?
You're totally spot on. So I think a lot of people are thinking we'll still get 3 inflation data points before that September meeting. So we'll have a lot more information when we go into September to cut interest rates. I think the markets are hoping for it, right? People in general are hoping for it because if the Federal Reserve starts cutting interest rates, that means a lower mortgage rate, a lower car insurance rate, right? But I think you're right in that the Federal Reserve's biggest mistake would be cutting too soon. If they cut rates in September and the economy isn't having a significant downturn, like you said, we're still near full employment. Unemployment rate is 4% or lower. Cutting interest rates too soon really risks reigniting inflation, having inflation really accelerate again. And that is really bad. You do not want to do that. I think a lot of people are also concerned about the timing of September, given that we're all going to polls to vote for the presidential election in November. And so a lot of people are thinking, hey, wait a minute, if you're cutting interest rates and boosting the economy right as we're going to the polls, doesn't that feel political? And this is a Federal Reserve that really wants to be seen as apolitical. And so I think there's a lot of questions about, is September right? Or should you wait until maybe December, until after the election is over?
Taylor Riggs, co-anchor, The Big Money Show, noon Central Time on Fox Business, joining us on KCMO in Kansas City. I mean, you look at the big picture. You mentioned there, of course, the political nature of what this fall is going to lead to. I know the Fed has been very insistent on appearing and coming off as apolitical. What are we waiting for then when it comes to something from them, some type of comment that will signal when or if those rate cuts will come next?
Jay Powell said yesterday that unemployment or something in the labor market that you mentioned would signal to him. So in the last few months, you've started to see unemployment start to rise just a little bit. Now, we are nowhere near high unemployment rates. Like I said, I'm 4% or lower. But if you start to see job losses pick up, if you start to see the economy roll over, business production really slowing down, jobless claims, people filing for those unemployment benefits. I think that is something that he would say, okay, wait, maybe we're taking the medicine too far, right? Mm-hmm. So I think he's really focused on the labor market. He said, watch the rate of unemployment. If that starts to trend northward, then we're worried. And also, if inflation gets under control, then they will start to lower interest rates. I sort of want to caution, we talked about interest rate cuts as being this big thing, and I agree that it is. But remember, if they cut, it's only probably going to be 25 basis points. That doesn't really move the needle after we've hiked interest rates over 5% in the last few years. So this would be sort of one cut, but we wouldn't be getting a lot of interest rate cuts immediately, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So the market, though, just continues to go bonkers. How much of that is what is really happening on the ground versus a handful of, big tech, Magnificent Seven stocks that continue to skyrocket because of artificial intelligence?
I know. So I think maybe 50-50, right? Like the markets love the idea of rate cuts because the simple math is that when interest rates are lower, the value of the stock market is higher. So people are really excited. Markets are forward looking. But I think the other half of what you said is totally spot on. So 35% of the gains that we've had in the S&P 500 this year have come from one stock. It's NVIDIA, because it is all AI, right? The 35% of the entire S&P 500 is the top 7 stocks that you just mentioned, right? Big tech, all really forward looking on AI. I think AI, everyone I've spoken to has said that we're in the batting practice. We're not even in the first inning of what we could see in AI. This is a game changer, and I think the market is seeing that and really excited about all of the changes and productivity that AI can bring. So I keep hearing a lot of hope and optimism out there for the market, and I would say so far at least it's good for your 401k or your pension. At least if the markets are high.
Is there growing concern in the people you talk to in the next minute that there's a bubble coming to be with this AI stuff, or not really?
I've asked that question every day because when I hear, like I just said, 35% of the gain comes from one stock, is this a bubble? And they say not really. You can look at valuations in these record highs and get nervous. And a lot of people say, does this compare to the year 2000, the dot-com bubble? Except that everyone I speak to says this time is different because AI is a real game changer that is changing the way that these companies can be valued. And now they're valued a lot more than they were before AI.
Wow. Taylor Riggs doing great work. Fox Business Network, the Big Money Show, noon today, right on Fox Business. Taylor, thank you so much for being here in Kansas City. Have a great day. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
You as well. That is Taylor Riggs on KCMO in Kansas City. Good stuff from the Fox Business Network.